Imagine. Thanksgiving Day. The family is gathered around the table. The turkey is still steaming, and suddenly my adult son stands up and declares, "You're a leech. You can't stay here anymore." I silently packed my things and left in the night. But the next morning he showed up at my door, shouting so loudly that it seemed like this was just the beginning. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The fork trembled halfway to my mouth when Scott pushed back his chair and grabbed his wine glass. Something in his movements made my jaw tighten. Linda wouldn't meet my eyes, suddenly fascinated by the pattern on her grandmother's china plate. The golden turkey sat between us, steam still rising from where I'd carved it 20 minutes ago, filling the dining room with sage and butter. "Dad," Scott's voice cracked like he was 16 again, not 38 with his own mortgage and corner office downtown. His fingers adjusted his collar for the third time since we'd sat down. "Linda and I have been talking." Jake looked up from his phone, probably sensing trouble the way kids do. Emily's crayon rolled across the table and hit my water glass with a tiny clink. The grandfather clock in the hallway marked 7:15, each tick suddenly loud as thunder. "We need our space." The words tumbled out fast, rehearsed. Scott's knuckles went white around the wineglass stem. "You can't stay here anymore." Silence crashed over us like ice water. My fork hovered there, stupid and useless, gravy dripping onto my plate. Linda studied her mashed potatoes with the intensity of a scientist discovering a new element. Emily's eyes went wide, darting between her parents and me. "Space?" The word came out rougher than I intended. My hands found the table edge, fingers digging into the wood Mary and I had picked out 30 years ago for our first apartment. "In the house I've been paying for?" Scott's jaw set in that stubborn way Mary used to say he got from me. "Dad, you've lived here rent-free for 3 years, since Mom died." The chair scraped against hardwood as I stood, my napkin falling to the floor. 3 years. 3 years of mortgage payments, utility bills, that new water heater last spring when theirs burst and flooded the basement. My wallet sat heavy in my back pocket, stuffed with receipts I'd been meaning to file. "Rent-free?" My voice climbed despite my efforts to control it. "I've paid $12,000 a year toward this mortgage, every month, like clockwork." The receipts came out crumpled, some torn at the edges from being folded and refolded. Bank statements from Ashwood Credit Union, each one showing the automatic transfer on the first of the month. Linda finally spoke, her teacher voice smooth and practiced. "Stanley, this is about more than money. It's about healthy boundaries. The children need to see their parents treat family with respect." Heat climbed my neck. Jake had put his phone down completely now, his 12-year-old face confused and worried. Emily clutched her drawing of a turkey made from her handprint. Scott waved his hand dismissively, knocking some of my papers aside. They fluttered to the floor like dead leaves. This emotional manipulation is exactly why we need distance. You can't guilt us into... "Guilt?" The word exploded out of me. "I worked double shifts at Morrison's garage to pay for your college. 16-hour days, 6 days a week. Your mother ate dinner alone more nights than I can count, so you wouldn't have student loans." "Nobody asked you to do that." Scott's corporate speak kicked in, all those leadership seminars and management training sessions bleeding through. "You made those choices. We're setting boundaries now for our family's well-being." My hands shook as I gathered the scattered bank statements. Some had footprints from where Scott had stepped back. $12,000 a year. 3 years. $36,000 dismissed with a wave of his manicured hand. The dining room felt smaller, the walls pressing in. That watercolor Emily painted last month hung crooked behind Linda's head. A house with smoke curling from the chimney, and stick figures holding hands in front. One grandfather, one father, one mother, 2 children, a family. "Jake, take your sister upstairs." Linda's tone brooked no argument. "But Mom?" "Now." The kids disappeared, their footsteps thundering overhead. Emily's voice carried down, high and worried, asking Jake why everyone was mad. His response got muffled by distance and closed doors. "You changed, son." The words came out tired, defeated. "Mary would have been heartbroken to see what you've become." "Don't bring Mom into this." Scott's face flushed. the vein in his temple that used to throb when he threw tantrums as a toddler standing out. This is exactly the kind of toxic behavior we're talking about. I looked at my son, really looked at him. When had he started using words like toxic and boundaries? When had the boy who used to wait by the window for me to come home from the garage turned into this stranger in a $200 shirt? The answer came with brutal clarity. I hadn't been paying attention. Too busy grieving Mary. Too busy trying to help with the kids. Too busy believing family meant something more than convenience. Fine. The word dropped like a stone into still water. I'll go. Neither of them expected that. Scott's eyebrows shot up, suspicion replacing satisfaction. Linda's mouth opened, then closed without sound. They'd prepared for a fight, for tears or pleading. Not this. My hand found the dining room door handle, brass worn smooth from decades of use. The brass felt cold under my palm as I turned back to face them. My checkbook lived in my shirt pocket, had since the day Morrison hired me in 1975. The leather cover had worn soft, edges frayed from thousands of openings. I pulled it out along with 3 months of bank statements I'd grabbed from my dresser that morning, planning to balance the accounts after dinner. Since we're discussing finances, the papers spread across the table, covering Linda's perfectly arranged place settings. November's statement showed the mortgage payment, $1,000, same as October, September, all the way back to December 2021 when I'd moved in. Scott's hand swept across the table, sending papers flying. A bank statement landed in the cranberry sauce. These manipulative tactics won't work anymore. We've been to counseling. We know what you're doing. Counseling? The word tasted bitter. Did your counselor tell you about 1996? When you needed braces and Mary needed surgery the same month? I took every shift Morrison would give me. Slept in my truck between jobs. 4 months of that. Your choices, Scott repeated like a mantra he'd memorized. Your decisions. Linda had returned from upstairs, standing in the doorway with her arms crossed. We never asked for those sacrifices. You can't hold them over us forever. The dining room had become a battlefield. Red wine spread across the white tablecloth, where Scott's dismissive gesture had knocked over his glass. It looked like blood. Bank statements scattered across the floor created a paper trail of 3 years' worth of payments they pretended didn't exist. When you were 8, I said to Scott, keeping my voice level, you broke your arm falling off the Wilsons' fence, remember? I was supposed to work late, but I left. Morrison docked my pay, threatened to fire me. I didn't care. You needed me. More emotional manipulation. Scott's therapy language felt like armor, protecting him from actually hearing anything. This is about establishing healthy family dynamics going forward. My father's toolbox sat in the garage, a 1952 Craftsman he'd carried to job sites across Oregon until his hands got too arthritic to hold a wrench. Inside, wrapped in an oily rag, lay the keys to this house, the spare set I'd made when we signed the papers in 2008, using my savings for the down payment when Scott's credit wasn't good enough. Healthy family dynamics, I tasted each word, foreign on my tongue. Is that what they're calling it when you throw your father out at Thanksgiving? You're not being thrown out. Linda's voice strained to maintain its teacher calm. We're asking you to find alternative arrangements. There's a difference. Alternative arrangements. More corporate speak. More therapy language. When had my family started talking like a human resources manual? The grandfather clock chimed 8. Through the window, Oak Street stretched empty and wet under streetlights. The Petersons' porch light flickered on. They always ate dinner late. Normal families finishing normal Thanksgivings. You know what? You're right. I bent to gather my scattered bank statements, knees protesting. One had a perfect boot print across the December 2023 payment. Scott's size 10 dress shoe. I did make choices. I chose to believe family meant something. My mistake. Dad, don't be dramatic. But Scott's voice wavered now, uncertain. They'd prepared for anger, for fights about money and sacrifice. They hadn't prepared for me to agree with them. The house keys came off my keyring with a small click. 20 years I'd carried them, first as the spare set when Scott bought the place, then as a resident when Mary got sick and we moved in to help with the kids. They hit the table with a metallic clatter that echoed in the sudden silence. There. No more emotional manipulation. No more toxic presence. You've got your boundaries. Linda flinched. Scott's satisfied nod looked forced, like he was trying to convince himself this had gone according to plan. My footsteps on the stairs sounded different, knowing it was the last time. Each creak of the old boards under the carpet, each worn spot where thousands of trips had left their mark. At the landing, Mary smiled from our wedding photo, forever 23 and believing in happy endings. The master bedroom, their guest room now, still smelled faintly of Mary's lavender soap. Her reading glasses sat on the nightstand where I'd left them that last morning, before the ambulance, before the hospital, before everything changed. I'd moved them from our old house like a talisman, unable to throw them away or pack them up. From downstairs, voices rose in what sounded like an argument. Linda's usually controlled tone had an edge, Scott's responses defensive. Good. Let them fight over the carcass of what used to be a family. My fingers wrapped around the bedroom doorknob, and I pushed into the space that had never really felt like mine. Mary's perfume bottle still sat on the dresser, 3 years of dust dulling its crystal surface. I couldn't bring it to my nose, not now. Not when leaving felt like betraying her memory all over again. The suitcase came down from the closet shelf, brown leather with a broken zipper I'd been meaning to fix. 3 work shirts went in first, the blue Dickies with Morrison's Garage embroidered on the pocket. Then the gray one, oil stains permanent despite Mary's best efforts. My good suit, the one from Mary's funeral, folded carefully in tissue paper she'd placed there herself for some future occasion that never came. The photo from our 30th anniversary went in next, wrapped in yesterday's Ashwood Gazette. We'd been laughing at something Jake had said, 4 years old then, missing his front teeth. Scott had taken the picture, back when he still visited without checking his phone every 5 minutes. From downstairs, muffled voices rose and fell. Linda's sharp tone cut through Scott's lower rumble. They were arguing about something, probably whether I'd actually leave, or if this was another manipulation tactic. My father's toolbox sat in the corner, red paint chipped, but latches still solid. He'd carried it through 40 years of construction sites before his hands gave out. Now it held 3 screwdrivers, a hammer that had belonged to his father, and a folded American flag from his funeral. The Father's Day card stayed in the drawer, 20 years of crayon drawings and store-bought sentiments. World's best dad in Scott's 6-year-old handwriting. Thanks for everything, in his teenage scrawl. Nothing for the last 5 years. I descended the stairs one final time, suitcase in my right hand, toolbox in my left. The family photos on the wall watched my departure. Scott's college graduation, Emily's first birthday. That camping trip to Crater Lake before Mary got sick. I kept my eyes forward. They'd moved to the living room. I could see them through the archway, Linda gesturing with her hands, while Scott sat slumped on their leather sectional. Neither looked up as I passed. The front door opened easily. No dramatic pause. No last words. The porch light clicked on automatically, motion sensor doing its job. Rain had started while we'd been destroying 30 years of family over turkey and stuffing. First just drops, then steady sheets that turned the streetlights into watercolor smears. By the time I reached the sidewalk, water had soaked through my jacket collar. Jim Wilson stood by his garbage cans, wrestling with a turkey carcass wrapped in aluminum foil. He stopped mid-toss when he saw me, suitcase and toolbox in hand, rain plastering my hair to my skull. "Stan, everything okay?" "Just heading out, Jim." My voice stayed steady despite the cold water running down my neck. "In this?" He gestured at the downpour. "Come inside. Let me give you a ride somewhere." Need to walk. Clear my head. Jim's face said he understood more than my words revealed. He'd been through his own divorce 10 years back, knew the look of a man leaving everything behind. "You take care, Stan." Oak Street stretched ahead, puddles already forming in the potholes the city never fixed. Steam rose from storm drains, creating ghostly pillars in the streetlight. Through windows I caught glimpses of other families, the Chens watching football, the new couple at 412 cleaning dishes together, normal people living normal lives. My phone buzzed. Scott's name lit up the screen. Then again. I watched it ring, raindrops distorting his contact photo. A picture from Emily's birthday last year, both of us smiling over chocolate cake. The buzzing stopped, then started again. Riverside Park appeared through the rain, empty playground equipment glistening wet. That bench still sat under the oak tree, though the tree had grown massive since 1971. Mary had said yes on that bench, crying and laughing at the same time while I fumbled with the ring box. I sat, despite the water pooling on the seat. The suitcase stood beside me like a patient dog. From my wallet, protected by leather and years of handling, I pulled Mary's photo. The rain couldn't touch it here, sheltered by my body hunched over this last piece of her. "He threw me out, Mare." The words disappeared into rain and wind. "Our son, the boy we killed ourselves to raise right." No answer came except rain drumming on leaves and the distant sound of traffic on Highway 26. My phone buzzed again, 3 missed calls now, 2 texts I wouldn't read. The cold had settled into my bones, that Oregon November cold that Mary used to say came with prejudice. A yellow cab materialized through the rain, Ashwood Cab Company painted on its door in fading letters. The driver, a heavy-set man with tired eyes, barely glanced at my soaked clothes and luggage. "Where to?" "Driftwood Motel." He nodded like men with suitcases in the rain were standard Thursday fare. The heater blasted recycled air that smelled of pine tree freshener and decades of cigarette smoke. Through fogged windows, Ashwood rolled past. The Morrisons' garage, where I'd spent 30 years, now a yoga studio. The elementary school where Scott had played Joseph in the Christmas pageant. The Catholic church where we'd held Mary's service. Each mile that separated me from Oak Street solidified something in my chest, hard and cold as winter ground. The cab's meter ticked steadily upward, numbers climbing like years, like sacrifices, like payments made to an account that had been closed without notice. The Driftwood Motel's neon sign flickered between vacancy and darkness, making promises it might or might not keep. My wet hand pushed against the motel's glass door, and fluorescent lights hit me like a slap. The lobby reeked of burnt coffee and pine sol, that particular combination that marked every forgotten place in America. Behind bulletproof glass, a night clerk in a yellowed shirt glanced up from his crossword puzzle. His name tag read Carl in faded letters. The registration form shook in my grip, water drops from my coat blurring the ink as I wrote. Stanley Rogers, age 67, vehicle, none. Emergency contact, I left it blank. Carl didn't care. He'd seen enough men with suitcases at midnight to know better than to ask questions. 47 a night. His voice came muffled through the speaker holes. 280 if you take the weekly rate. The credit card machine groaned like it remembered the Carter administration. Room 23's key came attached to a plastic diamond the size of a paperweight, designed to prevent theft by being too awkward for pockets. Carl pointed down a hallway where half the overhead lights had given up trying. Room 23 smelled of cigarette smoke that no amount of air freshener could mask. An orange bedspread from the 70s covered a bed that sagged in the middle. The ceiling sported a water stain shaped remarkably like Texas, complete with a dark spot where Austin would be. I hung my 3 work shirts in the closet with the same precision I'd used for 40 years. Blue Dickies on the left, gray in the middle, the good white one on the right. Mary's photo went on the nightstand, angled so I could see her from the bed. The toolbox found its place by the door, exactly where I'd always kept it at home, ready to grab if needed. Old habits die harder than marriages, apparently. The bed springs shrieked when I sat on the edge. Tomorrow morning, no small feet would thunder down the hallway. No Emily asking for pancakes shaped like butterflies. No Jake complaining about having to wake up early for basketball practice. My phone showed 7 missed calls from Scott, 2 from Linda. I turned it face down on the nightstand and pulled out the motel's notepad, so thin you could see through it. Numbers had always made more sense than people. Savings, $47,000, built over 30 years of skipping vacations and buying generic cereal. Monthly pension, $20,300 from Morrisons and the Union. Social Security, $200. Total monthly income, $300. The motel would run $120 monthly at the weekly rate. Food, maybe $400 if I ate cheap. Medicine, gas, miscellaneous, another $400. I could survive for years without touching the savings much. My phone's banking app confirmed what I already knew. December 1st mortgage payment sat there, scheduled and ready. $1,000 set to transfer automatically to Scott's account, just like every month for the past 3 years. My thumb hovered over the cancel button. Burden, I said to the empty room. Emotional manipulation. The cancel button felt satisfying under my thumb. Sleep didn't come. The neon sign outside blinked through curtains so thin they might as well have been tissue paper. Red, dark, red, dark, like a heartbeat for the lost and forgotten. The television played on mute, an infomercial for photo albums, showing happy families preserving memories. The irony wasn't lost on me. "What would you think of your son now, Mare?" I asked the photo. Her smile stayed frozen in 2019, back when Scott still called on Sundays and brought the kids over for dinner, without checking his watch every 5 minutes. 3 in the morning brought silence when the rain finally stopped. Through the window, the parking lot gleamed like black ice. I'd written 16 different text messages to Scott, deleting each one. They ranged from apologetic to furious, from pleading to threatening. None captured what I really wanted to say. How did we get here? By 6, I'd given up on sleep. The decision had crystallized sometime around 4, hard and clear as winter morning. My thumbs moved across the phone screen with purpose now. The mortgage payment ends December 1st. You're on your own now, just like you wanted. Simple, factual, devastating in its implications. My thumb hesitated over the send button. Mary always said I acted too quickly when angry, needed to cool down first. But then Scott's words echoed, burden, toxic, emotional manipulation. The message sent at 6:47 a.m. exactly. The phone rang immediately. Scott's photo filled the screen. Him at Emily's 9th birthday party, chocolate frosting on his nose, laughing. I counted the rings, 15 before it went to voicemail. Then it started again. I left it buzzing on the nightstand and stepped into the shower. The water pressure barely qualified as a drizzle, but it was hot, and it drowned out the sound of everything I was walking away from. The shower's pathetic stream had just stopped when the knocking started. That rhythm, 3 quick, 2 slow, the same pattern Scott used on my workshop door when he was 7, wanting to help with whatever project I had spread across the workbench. Water still clogged my ears as I grabbed the thin towel that felt like sandpaper against skin. Through the peephole, Scott looked wrong. His usual perfect executive appearance had crumbled overnight. Stubble darkened his jaw, something I'd never seen on him since he started shaving. His BMW sat crooked across 2 parking spaces, driver's door hanging open like he'd been too desperate to close it properly. I backed away from the door and sat on the bed's edge. Let him knock. "Dad, please." His voice carried through the cheap wood like it was paper. "We need to talk about this rationally." Rationally. Another therapy word. I counted the ceiling tiles instead of answering. 24 across, 18 down. "I know you're in there. Your phone's GPS shows this location." Of course it did. I'd forgotten about the family tracking app Linda had insisted on after Mary's death. "For emergencies," she'd said. "Dad, listen. The mortgage, it's not just $1,000. It's $2,847. Every month." Now we were getting somewhere. I pulled the notepad closer, jotting down the number. "My salary after taxes is $5,200. Linda makes $2,800 teaching. You know what Jake's orthodontics cost? Emily's piano lessons? The car payments?" His voice cracked on car payments. The BMW. The Lexus. Status symbols he couldn't afford without my invisible subsidies. "We can only cover $1,500 of the mortgage ourselves, maybe, if we cut everything else." Silence stretched between us, broken only by his palm hitting the door, not pounding, just resting there like he used to put his hand on my shoulder when he wanted something. "The bank will foreclose after 90 days. You understand what that means? The kids will have to change schools, leave their friends." Inside my chest, 2 feelings went to war. Satisfaction at his desperation battled with genuine pain for Jake and Emily. They didn't choose their parents. The pounding intensified. "Dad, open this door!" A door 2 rooms down cracked open. "Keep it down!" "Mind your own business," Scott snapped back, the executive mask slipping completely. Heavy footsteps approached on the walkway. Through the blinds, I watched Rick, the security guard, amble over, retired cop by his walk, seen too much by his expression. He wore his authority like comfortable shoes, not needing to prove anything. "Sir, you're disturbing our guests. This is my father." Scott fumbled for his wallet, pulling out his driver's license like it was a magic talisman. "See? Scott Rogers. He's Stanley Rogers. This is family business. Rick didn't even glance at the license. Family business stays off the property if it involves shouting and disrupting paying guests. I'm not shouting. He was definitely shouting. Sir, you can leave now, or I can call Ashwood PD. They're usually pretty quick on Friday mornings. Scott's shoulders sagged. He looked older suddenly, all 43 years of his age showing in the morning light. Dad, please, Mom wouldn't want this. Using Mary as ammunition now. I pressed my fingernails into my palms until they left crescents. Think about Jake and Emily. You're destroying our family. Rick stepped closer. That's enough. Time to go. Scott backed toward his BMW, still pleading, this is insane. You're being completely irrational. More therapy speak. More corporate buzzwords. Rick followed him all the way to the car, arms crossed, making sure he actually left. Scott sat in the driver's seat for 10 minutes, staring at room 23 like willpower alone could open the door. He started the engine 3 times, pulling forward a few feet before reversing back to the same spot. Finally, at 11:43 a.m., according to the digital clock, he drove away. Rick's knock came gentle, almost apologetic. You okay in there, Mr. Rogers? Fine, I called through the door. Sorry about the disturbance. No apology needed. Family troubles. We've all been there. His footsteps moved away, then paused. Kitchen's open until 2 if you need breakfast. Decent eggs. Alone again, I checked my phone. 23 missed calls. 47 text messages. One from Linda stood out. You're destroying your grandchildren's lives. How can you be so selfish? I deleted them all without reading the rest, then plugged the phone back in to charge. My stomach reminded me I hadn't eaten since yesterday's ruined Thanksgiving. Time to find breakfast and figure out what came next. In this war I hadn't started but intended to finish. Coffee steam rose from the paper cup as I walked back from the diner, the afternoon sun breaking through Oregon's perpetual clouds. A Honda Civic sat next to Scott's BMW in the motel lot. Linda's car, with its Ashwood Elementary Teacher of the Year bumper sticker, she stood beside it, arms crossed, teacher posture in full effect. Her finger pointed at me before I'd made it halfway across the lot. Stanley Rogers, you should be ashamed. I set my coffee on the concrete barrier. No point in spilling it during whatever scene she'd come to create. Emily cried all night. Jake won't eat. They think their grandfather hates them now. Other motel guests cracked their doors, drawn by the drama. A woman in curlers stepped onto her doorstep with a cigarette, not even pretending she wasn't watching. Is that what you told them? My voice carried farther than intended. That I hate them? We told them the truth. That you abandoned the family. Abandoned? The word tasted like copper. After paying your mortgage for 15 years? Linda's teacher voice rose to playground monitor levels. Living rent-free in our home for 3 years, and this is how you repay us? Several guests had fully emerged now, some holding phones in that particular angle that meant recording. Good. Let them see this. I pulled out my phone, opening the banking app with deliberate slowness. Rent-free? Let me show you something. The screen displayed my transaction history. November 1st, $1,000. October 1st, $1,000. September 1st. Those were gifts. Linda's composure cracked slightly. Gifts come with cards. These came with mortgage statements. Scott emerged from his BMW, trying to pull Linda's arm. People are watching, he hissed. She shook him off. Let them watch. Let them see what kind of man throws away his family over money. $180,000. I made sure the growing audience heard clearly. That's what I've gifted you over 15 years, while wearing the same boots for a decade, while skipping medications to save money, while your husband drove a BMW we both know you can't afford. The woman in curlers shook her head, muttering something that sounded sympathetic to me. And let's discuss history, since we have witnesses. My voice found the same tone I'd used when teaching Scott to admit his mistakes as a child. Scott's college, $45,000 I paid while working 16-hour shifts. Your wedding, $20,000 I borrowed against my 401k. Linda's face had gone pale. Someone's phone flash went off. Your student loans, I stepped closer. $28,000, co-signed by me, paid by me when you defaulted in your second year teaching. That's not, Scott started. Your failed consulting business. I turned to him. $15,000 to save you from bankruptcy, you said. The down payment for your house. My entire retirement fund at the time. $30,000. More guests had gathered. The motel manager, Dorothy, stood in her office doorway, arms crossed but not intervening. Should I continue? Or should we discuss the cruise you took last year while I paid your mortgage? Linda's teacher authority had evaporated entirely. You can't prove any of this. I laughed, and it came out bitter. Every receipt, every bank statement, every canceled check. 40 years of documentation habits, Linda. You picked the wrong mechanic to threaten. It's not a threat. Scott found his executive voice again. We'll contest everything. Say you promised it. Elder financial abuse works both ways. Try it. The calmness in my voice seemed to unnerve them more than shouting would have. Explain to a judge why a 67-year-old retiree was paying your bills while you drove luxury cars. Rick had returned from lunch, standing near the office, ready to intervene if needed. Dorothy stepped out, making her presence more obvious. You'll never see Jake and Emily again. Linda's final card thrown with desperation. Probably not. The admission hurt, but I kept my voice steady. But they'll grow up. They'll ask questions, and someday I'll show them these same receipts. Linda grabbed Scott's arm, pulling him toward their cars. This isn't over. No, I agreed. It's just beginning. They left in separate cars, Linda's Honda speeding out first, Scott's BMW following more slowly. The assembled crowd began dispersing, but not before an older man, probably 75, walked over. Good for you, he said simply, standing up. Too many of us don't. I nodded, retrieved my cold coffee, and headed back to room 23. My hands shook as I unlocked the door, but not from fear or regret. This was war now, declared in a motel parking lot in front of a dozen witnesses. Inside, I sat on the bed and picked up Mary's photo. It started, Mayor. No going back now. The bell above Rosie's diner chimed as I pushed through the door. Saturday morning regulars already settled into their routines. Bacon grease and coffee created that particular smell that meant breakfast in small-town America. Yesterday, I'd stayed locked in room 23, ignoring 37 calls and staring at the ceiling while wearing the same clothes for the second day running. My usual corner booth sat occupied by a young couple sharing pancakes. I took a counter stool instead, the red vinyl cracked but comfortable. Evelyn Carter moved between tables with practiced efficiency, coffee pot in one hand, order pad in the other. Her name tag hung crooked, reading Evie 15 years in faded letters. She did a double take when she saw me, nearly overfilling Jim Peterson's cup. Her forehead creased with concern as she made her way over, dodging the two cops on break who always sat by the window. Stanley Rogers, you look like something the cat dragged through a hedge backwards. Coffee appeared in front of me without asking. Where have you been? And why do you look like you haven't slept in days? The whole story tumbled out quieter than intended. Thanksgiving, the eviction, the mortgage payments. Her face transformed from surprise to anger, color rising in her cheeks. Scott did what? Her voice carried across the diner. 3 farmers at the next table turned to stare. Keep it down, Evie. My shoulders hunched, embarrassment heating my neck. Keep it down? I served that boy pancakes every Sunday for 20 years. Remember when he was 16 and complained the syrup wasn't warm enough? Made me microwave it 3 times. She untied her apron with sharp movements. Roy, taking my 15? Her boss waved from the kitchen, used to Evelyn's occasional declarations. She slid into the seat, across from me despite the no fraternizing policy, elbows on the Formica table. That ungrateful little... She caught herself. Stanley, you paid for his whole life. I watched you come in here after double shifts. Too tired to lift your coffee cup properly? The bell chimed again. Maria Torres entered carrying a stack of bright yellow flyers, her blazer over jeans combination suggesting professional, but approachable. She moved with purpose toward the bulletin board, pinning up something about senior resources. Her head turned slightly as Evelyn continued, voice rising despite my attempts to shush her. $180,000? And he throws you out at Thanksgiving? Maria's steps slowed. She approached our booth with respectful caution. I'm sorry to interrupt. I couldn't help overhearing. I'm Maria Torres from the Ashwood Community Center. Evelyn's protective instincts kicked in. This is a private conversation. Of course. Maria pulled out a business card, placing it carefully on the table. I run programs for senior advocacy, legal aid, housing assistance, support groups. My father went through something similar with my brother. She had my attention now. Similar how? Paid for everything. College, house down payment, business ventures that failed. Her jaw tightened. Then when Dad needed help after Mom died, suddenly he was a burden. The word burden hit like ice water. Maria noticed my flinch. We meet Monday evenings, 6 o'clock. It's not charity, it's community. People who understand what you're going through. Pride wrestled with pragmatism in my chest. Evelyn's hand covered mine on the table. Stanley, you taught Scott how to use tools to build things. These are just different tools. We have a lawyer who volunteers, Maria added casually, specializes in elder financial abuse. That changed things. Elder financial abuse. 70% happens within families. Maria's statistics came quick and practiced. Most victims never report it because of shame or fear of losing grandchildren. Evelyn leaned forward. Make it public, Stanley. Shame works in small towns. Scott can't pretend to be the successful executive if everyone knows his father pays his bills. The idea sparked something. Could I protect what money I have left? Maria's eyes sharpened. There are ways, trusts, foundations, legal structures that prevent family members from accessing funds while ensuring they're used for legitimate purposes. She wrote an address on a napkin, her handwriting neat and clear. Monday, 6 o'clock. Refreshments provided. Just come and listen if nothing else. The bell chimed as new customers entered. Maria stood, gathering her remaining flyers. Sometimes the best revenge is living well and helping others do the same. After she left, Evelyn squeezed my hand. You're going, right? Yeah. The decision felt solid. I'm going. Good, now eat something. You look skinny. She stood, retying her apron. Eggs and toast, on the house. And Stanley? Mary would be proud of you for standing up. My hand gripped the community center's door handle, fluorescent lights glowing through reinforced glass. Voices murmured from inside, not quite conversation, more like the careful talk of strangers sharing space. 2 days since the diner, I'd prepared my story, rehearsing facts and figures. The new notebook in my pocket had 3 pages of notes, pen clicking nervously against my leg. The room smelled of burnt coffee and lemon cleaner. 8 people sat in a circle of mismatched chairs, office cast-offs, folding metal, 1 recliner someone had donated. Water stains marked the ceiling tiles in constellation patterns. Maria stood by a folding table with an industrial coffee urn and store-brand cookies arranged on paper plates. Stanley, you came. Her smile was professional, but genuine. Coffee's terrible, but hot. I chose a chair near the door. Old habit from construction sites, always know your exits. The others nodded or offered tentative smiles. Ages ranged from maybe 60 to 80, but they all shared that particular weariness that comes from family betrayal. Let's begin. Maria took her seat, clipboard balanced on her knee. Ground rules. What's shared here stays here. No judgment. Everyone's story matters. Who wants to start? George went first, 70 years old, with hands that shook slightly. Daughter convinced me to put her on my accounts. For emergencies, she said. Woke up one morning, 100,000 gone. She'd moved to Florida with her boyfriend. Rosa dabbed her eyes with a tissue someone passed her. My son sold my house while I was in the hospital for hip surgery. Forged my signature. I came home to an eviction notice. Frank's story hit hardest. Grandkids. They use the grandkids. His fist clenched on his knee. Want to see them? Give us money. Want them for holidays? That'll cost extra. 8 years of this. Each story felt like looking in a warped mirror. Same betrayal. Different details. My turn came naturally. No forcing needed. Standing helped steady my voice. Thanksgiving night, my son and his wife, after I'd paid their mortgage for 15 years, raised him alone after my wife died, paid for college, wedding, everything. They said I was a burden, toxic, that they needed boundaries. Guess rippled through the circle. George's coffee cup rattled against his saucer. How much, if you don't mind? 180,000 over 15 years, not counting college, wedding, failed business ventures. That's criminal, George's voice cracked with indignation. Rosa's tears flowed freely now. The grandchildren always suffer most. They don't understand why Grandpa isn't around anymore. Frank stood abruptly, pacing to the window. We all gave everything, every damn thing. And for what? To be thrown away like trash when we're no longer useful? Maria took rapid notes, her pen scratching across paper. This needs documentation. Stanley, do you have receipts? Everyone. 40 years of financial records. Good. That's evidence. She looked around the circle. This is why we need to protect ourselves. Now let's brainstorm solutions. Suggestions flew. Media exposure, legal action, family counseling. Then an idea crystallized in my mind, clear as morning frost. What if we pooled resources? The words came out stronger than expected. Created our own safety net? Skepticism flickered across faces before interest took hold. George leaned forward. Like insurance? Against family? Like a mutual aid fund? The concept took shape as I spoke. We put in what we can, help those in crisis, protect each other's assets from exploitation. Rosa clasped her hands together. We become each other's family. The family we choose instead of the one that chose to hurt us. Practical concerns arose immediately. Legal structure, management, transparency. Each problem sparked solutions from the group. Frank knew accounting, Rosa had nonprofit experience, George's nephew was a banker. Maria's excitement was palpable. I know a lawyer, Carl Mitchell. He specializes in elder law, does pro bono work for the center. We need a committee, George's military background showed. Can't do this haphazard. Hands raised. Mine, George's, Rosa's. Others volunteered for research, outreach, logistics. Phone numbers got exchanged, email addresses carefully printed on Maria's sign-up sheet. Frank returned from the window. Make it public. Complete transparency. Protection through visibility. They can't steal what everyone's watching. I found myself at the whiteboard, marker in hand. The Ashwood Senior Protection Alliance appeared in block letters. Alliance, Rosa tested the word. I like it. We're allies now. The energy shift was tangible. 8 victims had become 8 activists. Maria stood, checking her watch. Next Monday, same time. Stanley, can you meet with Carl Mitchell this week? Yes? The notebook came out again, his number copied down. I'll call tomorrow. Walking out, George caught my sleeve. This could work. Really work. It has to. I looked back at the whiteboard, our declaration still bold in blue marker. We don't have another choice. December 5th arrived gray and drizzling. The brass nameplate reading Mitchell and Associates gleamed despite the weather. The secretary looked up curiously as I entered, wet coat dripping on her carpet. Carl Mitchell's office felt like organized chaos, law books stacked on every surface, coffee stains ring-marking his oak desk, a photo of him with the mayor at some charity event. He stood to shake hands, his grip firm, calloused, working-class hands despite the law degree. Maria Torres called about you. He gestured to a cracked leather chair. Said you're starting something important. The next hour became a legal education. Irrevocable trust. Charitable purpose. Protected assets. He explained each term like he was teaching, not lecturing. My father worked at the paper mill for 40 years. Carl rolled a pen between his fingers. When he got sick, my sister convinced him to sign over the house. For Medicare planning, she said. He died in a nursing home while she lived in his home. I'm sorry. Don't be. Just understand I have personal stakes in this. He pulled out forms. $2,000 to set up the trust properly. You'll be the founder, but you'll need a board of 3 minimum. $2,000 would dent my savings, but not break them. I can manage that. Your son can't challenge this if it's done right, but I need documentation. Everything. The stack of bank statements and receipts I'd brought made him whistle. You really did keep everything. Mechanics document everything. Never know when you'll need to prove what work was done. December 10th, Wells Fargo's main branch, 9 in the morning. Carl flanked my left, George and Rosa on my right. Rebecca Chen, the branch manager, had cleared a conference room for us. The Ashwood Senior Protection Fund, she typed carefully. Initial deposit, $30,000. The check had already been written, hand steady despite the amount. George and Rosa co-signed as board members, their signatures making it official. Rebecca explained the security measures, dual signatures for withdrawals over 500, monthly audit requirements, complete transparency reports. We see too much elder fraud. Her professionalism cracked slightly. It's good what you're doing. As we finished, the door opened. Tom Bradley from Scott's company entered, probably on his lunch break. His eyes widened, seeing our group around the conference table with legal documents spread out. I watched him pull out his phone as he headed to the teller. December 15th found me at Brood Awakening Coffee Shop with Jenny Martinez from the Ashwood Gazette. She'd brought a photographer who circled our table, capturing angles of me holding bank statements. Financial elder abuse by adult children is epidemic. Jenny's recorder sat between us. Red light, steady. Can you speak to the emotional impact? Betrayal. The word came out flat. 40 years of sacrifice dismissed as toxic behavior. I reached out to your son for comment. She checked her notes. He declined. Of course he did. The photographer snapped pictures as other seniors approached our table. Word had spread through town like wildfire. 7 pledged support immediately, one woman pressing a check into my hand right there. This could be picked up by state media. Jenny gathered her things. Elder abuse is hot topic right now. December 18th brought the confrontation I'd been expecting. Scott burst into Wells Fargo like a storm, demanding access to his father's accounts. Rebecca's calm never wavered. That's not your account, Mr. Rogers. He's mentally incompetent. He's giving away my inheritance. Carl appeared from the side office where he'd been waiting. I'd called him when I saw Scott's BMW in the parking lot. I represent Mr. Stanley Rogers. Any concerns about his mental capacity can be addressed through proper legal channels. You manipulated him. Scott pointed at Carl, spittle flying. Actually, we've never met before today. Carl's voice stayed courtroom steady. But I'll add harassment to the charges if you continue. Tom, the security guard, stepped forward, hand on his radio. Scott's desperation painted his face red, veins prominent. That money is family money. Your father's receipts indicate it's his money. Carl held up a folder. $180,000 worth of his money, specifically. Scott retreated, shouting about getting his own lawyer, about competency hearings, about elder abuse investigations. The bank customers watched with undisguised interest. December 20th, Community Center, standing room only. 23 seniors, plus media, plus uninvited guests. Our first official distribution, $1,500 to prevent Margaret Holloway's foreclosure. Margaret cried as she accepted the check. My daughter hasn't spoken to me in 3 years, but still had me co-sign her business loan. The mayor appeared, election year magic. His speech about community values rang hollow, but the publicity helped. Camera crews from Channel 7 caught it all. Through the window, I spotted Scott's BMW in the parking lot. He sat watching, Linda beside him. As Margaret signed the receipt, my phone buzzed. Linda calling. I let it ring, focusing instead on the crowd, the hope in faces that had been hopeless. Scott's car pulled away as the news crew interviewed Margaret. How does it feel? Jenny Martinez had appeared beside me. Like the beginning. I looked at the room full of allies. Just the beginning. My fingers adjusted the microphone, feedback squealing briefly before settling. The Ashwood Community Center's main auditorium held 200 folding chairs, everyone occupied, with more people standing along the walls. Channel 7's news crew had claimed the back corner, their camera's red light steady as a heartbeat. 3 weeks since the initial news story broke, and momentum had built like a storm system over the Pacific. The new suit I'd bought for today felt stiff, but appropriate. Mary would have insisted on proper presentation. Behind me, a vinyl banner proclaimed Ashwood Senior Protection Fund, Dignity Through Unity in bold blue letters. Mayor Thompson fidgeted in the front row, campaign posters visible through the windows of his sedan outside. George and Rosa flanked me at the board table, their presence solid as oak beams. Maria worked the registration desk, her clipboard showing 43 new member applications in just the last hour. Evelyn caught my eye from her front row seat, giving me a thumbs up that helped steady my nerves. One chair remained conspicuously empty, reserved for Scott, though we all knew he wouldn't come. They called me a burden. My voice carried without shouting, years of workshop instructions serving me well. Today we become unburdened, not by abandoning family, but by choosing our own. Applause rippled through the crowd. Jenny Martinez scribbled notes, her photographer crouching for angles. Since December, we've raised $47,000. We've prevented 5 foreclosures, covered emergency medical expenses for 3 members, and provided legal consultation for 7 cases of financial elder abuse. My voice cracked, mentioning Mary. Unplanned, unavoidable. My wife would be proud that we're protecting each other the way families should. The standing ovation came mid-speech, unexpected and overwhelming. Margaret Holloway led it, tears streaming down her weathered face. Specific examples matter. I steadied myself against the podium. Mrs. Chen kept her home of 30 years. Frank Morrison received his cancer treatments. The Hendersons won't have to choose between medication and food this month. Mayor Thompson stood abruptly, producing an oversized check with political theater timing. The city of Ashwood is proud to contribute $10,000 to this worthy cause. His calculation was obvious. Election in 6 months. But money was money. The crowd erupted again as the photographer captured the check presentation. Channel 7's reporter, Diane Walsh, intercepted me during the reception. "Mr. Rogers, your son's situation has become quite public. Any comments? This isn't about revenge." The words came measured, practiced. It's about respect. Every senior here gave everything for their families. We deserve dignity in return. Behind Diane, a teenager filmed on his phone, live streaming. "My grandpa needs to see this," he called out. "He's going through the same thing in Portland." The hashtag #RespectYourElders was already trending locally. 3 other seniors approached with their own stories, while Diane interviewed them, each tale a variation on the same theme of sacrifice, repaid with abandonment. "This is going statewide," Diane told her cameraman, "maybe national." The attention made me uncomfortable. I'd always been a background person, hands dirty with honest work. But if publicity protected one senior from exploitation, the discomfort was worth it. During the reception, Jim Wilson pulled me aside. "Thought you should know. Scott tried buying lumber at Henderson's yesterday. They turned him away." "What?" Cashier told him straight. "We don't serve people who abandon family." He left without arguing. The implications rippled outward. Tom Chen mentioned the gas station making Scott prepay. The barber shop was permanently booked when Scott called. Even the grocery store manager had workers avoid him, forcing self-checkout only. Small-town justice operated on its own laws, harsh but effective. My phone vibrated during the cake cutting. Linda's name on the screen made me step outside, despite the celebration continuing inside. "Stanley?" Her voice sounded strained, carefully controlled. "The kids miss you terribly." Hearing about Jake and Emily twisted something in my chest. I miss them too. "Scott," she paused, choosing words carefully. "He cries at night. Won't admit he was wrong, but the whole town has turned against us. He knows what he needs to do. We might lose the house next month." The admission came rushed, desperate. The mortgage company sent a final notice. "That's his choice, Linda. I offered him everything for 40 years. He chose nothing." The line went silent except for her breathing. Inside, applause erupted again, probably another donation announcement. "Can't we find a way past this?" Her teacher voice cracked completely. "He knows the way. Acknowledge what he did. Make amends. Stop treating me like an ATM with dementia." I hung up gently but firmly, returning to warmth and acceptance inside. The crowd parted, hands reaching to shake mine, voices offering thanks and support. This was my family now, chosen, not born, but no less real. Scott stared at his computer screen, the email's subject line burning into his retinas. Senior management position. Other candidate selected. 2 weeks since his father's public triumph, and the rejection felt like another domino falling in a line that started on Thanksgiving. Past due notices covered the kitchen counter like accusations. The mortgage company's second notice, urgent, screamed in red letters. Linda sat across from him, calculator in hand, performing the same impossible math for the 5th time this morning. Brad Harrison's corner office felt 20 degrees colder than usual when Scott entered. His boss didn't offer coffee or small talk. "Your situation has become a liability, Scott." Brad's fingers drummed on his desk. 3 clients specifically mentioned that article about your father when they declined to renew contracts. "That has nothing to do with my work performance. Tech-forward values, family values. It's in our mission statement." Brad pulled out a folder. "The promotion went to Davidson. He's younger, hungrier, and doesn't have reporters calling our PR department." The words hit like physical blows. Scott had worked 60-hour weeks for that promotion, sacrificed weekends, missed Jake's basketball games. Fix this, Scott, or consider your options. Brad's meaning was crystal clear. Resignation or termination, choose one. The walk back to his cubicle felt like a funeral march. Coworkers averted their eyes, suddenly fascinated by their screens. An email from HR waited. Mandatory sensitivity training, intergenerational workplace dynamics. At home, Linda had the bills spread across the kitchen table like evidence at a trial. Credit cards are max from covering the mortgage shortfall. Jake needs braces. $3,000 we don't have. I had to cancel Emily's piano lessons. I know. Our savings is down to $1,200. She pushed the calculator away. Your pride cost us everything. Scott's laptop showed 17 job listings in other cities. Seattle, Denver, Austin. Places where the Rogers name meant nothing. Where nobody knew about abandoned fathers or viral hashtags. We could declare bankruptcy, Linda said quietly. The word hung between them like a death sentence. Bankruptcy at 38. Their credit destroyed. The house gone. The cars repossessed. Starting over with nothing. Meanwhile, across town in a modest one-bedroom apartment, Stanley stirred soup on an electric burner that worked perfectly fine. The view overlooked Riverside Park, where he'd proposed to Mary 53 years ago. The furniture came from Salvation Army. Sturdy, functional, sufficient. His photo wall told a different story than the bare walls at Oak Street. Baby Scott taking first steps. Mary laughing at their 25th anniversary. Jake's first day of school. Emily's kindergarten graduation, all before the breaking. The refrigerator held a volunteer schedule. Monday at the food bank, Wednesday at the senior center, Friday helping with fund administration. Structure, purpose, peace. At 3:30 his doorbell rang unexpectedly. Jake and Emily stood in the hallway, backpacks slung over shoulders, faces both guilty and desperate. Mom thinks we're at the library, Jake confessed immediately. Emily flew into his arms, crying, "Why can't you come home, Grandpa? Why won't Daddy apologize?" Stanley led them inside, his heart breaking and healing simultaneously. Sometimes adults make mistakes that take time to fix. Jake, mature beyond his 12 years, sat heavily on the couch. Dad messed up, didn't he? Really bad? The truth deserved honesty, but these children didn't deserve pain. Your dad forgot some important things. He's remembering them now, slowly. Cookies appeared from a tin, milk from the refrigerator. Normal grandfather things in an abnormal situation. Emily showed him her math homework. Jake talked about making the basketball team. For an hour, they pretended nothing had changed. Dad's been different, Jake admitted quietly. Quiet. He doesn't yell anymore, just stares at nothing. Mom cries when she thinks we're asleep, Emily added, chocolate chip crumbs on her chin. Adults do that sometimes when they're figuring things out. Stanley hugged them both. But you know what never changes? How much I love you both. They promised to visit again, rules or no rules. Stanley didn't discourage them. Grandchildren needed grandfathers, even when fathers had failed. The door opened without knocking. Scott stood there, finding exactly what he'd expected. His face showed no anger. Exhaustion had burned that away. Defeat lined every feature. I figured they'd be here. His voice carried no accusation. The children tensed, expecting an explosion that didn't come. Scott looked older, grayer, smaller than 2 months ago. Wait in the car, kids. They hugged Stanley goodbye, Emily whispering, "Love you," before disappearing down the hall. Father and son stood in silence that stretched like years. Scott's shoulders slumped, his executive posture completely abandoned. How did we get here? The question came out broken. You know exactly how. More silence. Scott's hand gripped the doorframe like it was holding him upright. He stopped, swallowed, tried again. We need to talk. Really talk. Not about money or houses or pride. About us. About Mom. About everything I broke. Stanley studied his son's face, finding something that had been missing since Thanksgiving. Genuine recognition of wrongdoing. Then talk. Scott's hand found the doorknob, but he looked back. Not here. Not now. But soon. Please. Spring came early to Ashwood, crocuses pushing through the last snow beside the pond in Riverside Park. I sat on the bench, our bench, Mary's and mine, tossing breadcrumbs to mallards that remembered me from decades of visits. Scott's footsteps on the gravel path came tentative, uncertain. 6 weeks since that broken conversation in my apartment doorway. He'd changed. Jeans and a work shirt replaced his usual executive armor, hands shoved deep in pockets like the teenager he'd once been. "Is this bench taken?" He stood at respectful distance. I gestured to the empty space. Permission, not invitation. He sat carefully, maintaining gap between us, both watching the ducks paddle circles. "I've been seeing a counselor." The admission came without preamble. "Twice a week." Surprise must have shown on my face. "About time, right?" His laugh held no humor. "Dr. Patterson says I have issues with social class anxiety. Apparently I was so terrified of being working class that I betrayed the best man I know." Silence stretched while ducks squabbled over bread. "I'm working overtime now, 60 hours minimum. Linda's substitute teaching full-time. We're making the mortgage. Barely. Good. The kids' grades are improving. Stability helps, even reduced circumstances." More silence. Scott's prepared speech crumbled, replaced by raw truth. "I became someone Mom wouldn't recognize." His voice broke. "She married you because you were solid, dependable, honest. She'd hate what I became." Each acknowledgement came painfully specific. "When I was at State, you ate beans and rice for months so I could have meal plans. I complained the cafeteria food was repetitive." The ducks had given up, swimming away. "You cashed out your entire 401k for our house down payment. $30,000 of retirement gone so we could have a yard for future grandkids." His voice grew stronger, like confession bringing relief. 3 years. 3 years after Mom died, you held us together. Cooked, cleaned, watched the kids, paid bills, and I called you a burden. I used therapy speak to justify greed. No excuses followed. No deflection, no blame shifting, no corporate buzzwords. I was scared. The admission came quiet. Scared of becoming you. Blue collar, paycheck to paycheck, hands dirty from honest work. Now I see you're twice the man I'll ever be. 10 times. I let him talk, listening without absolving. "I'm sorry." Simple, direct, insufficient, but necessary. "I'm so deeply sorry for everything." Apologies are words. My response came measured. "I need actions. Tell me what to do." Continue counseling, individual and family. Teach Jake and Emily real values: work, sacrifice, family loyalty. Volunteer at the senior center monthly minimum. Never ever use my grandchildren as manipulation. Respect boundaries. Visits are scheduled, not assumed. And achieve complete financial independence. No requests. Ever. Yes. All of it. Yes. I pulled out a paper from my jacket. Written agreement. These conditions. Scott signed without reading, pen steady. Trust gesture. Growth. "There's something else." I stood. "Come with me." We walked to the community center together, not touching but parallel. The new addition bore a sign I hadn't wanted. Rogers Resource Room, chosen by donors over my objections. A crowd had gathered for the dedication. George and Rosa nodded at me, offering Scott only cool assessment. Maria organized the refreshment table. The mayor practiced his speech. Jenny Martinez readied her recorder. "My son is here," I announced simply. "He's learning." Scott stepped forward. No executive confidence, just humility. "I failed my father. I failed my family values. I'm working to earn forgiveness I don't deserve." Hesitant applause started, grew slightly. Not absolution, but acknowledgement of effort. Jake and Emily burst from Linda's car, running to both of us, arms wide. We caught them together, first time since Thanksgiving. Linda approached slowly, gratitude clear in her expression. "Easter dinner," she offered quietly. "If you're comfortable, your apartment or ours, your choice." "Mine. 2 o'clock. Bring rolls." Normal family negotiations. Small steps. The photographer captured us together. Formal, not intimate. Recovery, not reunion. Work in progress. Community members offered mixed reactions. Some forgave readily, others remained skeptical. Both responses were fair. Trust required time. After the ceremony, people dispersed gradually. Scott and I walked different directions, him to his struggling life, me to my peaceful one. But I stopped, watched him kneel beside Jake near the parking lot, pulling out a calculator, explaining compound interest with patience I'd taught him decades ago. teaching his son what I'd taught him, the cycle continuing despite the break. Justice isn't revenge. It's balance restored, its dignity reclaimed, its next generations learning from previous mistakes. I returned to my apartment alone, but not lonely. Mary's photo smiled from the mantel. We raised him right originally, I told her. He just got lost for a while. Maybe he's finding his way back. The future remained uncertain. Wounds that deep don't heal quickly. But spring had come early to Ashwood, and sometimes that's enough to begin. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.